Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. Kharkiv has suffered more Russian drone attacks targeting civilian infrastructure and buildings, injuring 2. Ukraine's second largest city is located just 30 kilometers from the Russian border. We now go live to our correspondent in Kyiv, Oleksiy Chernyshov, to tell us more. Good afternoon, Oz. What are the latest details emerging from these attacks?
Well, the number of injured is now reportedly up to 3 in the total number of injured in the attacks across Ukraine, with the Ukrainian authorities reporting that Russia launched 121 drones onto Ukrainian territory, largely targeting the northern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. Now, a logistics company warehouse was targeted. That's SAT Logistics Company, LLC. Their warehouse was attacked by a missile in Kharkiv. So another difficult day for the Ukrainians. But as you rightly said, civilian infrastructure being targeted, with the Ukrainian authorities reporting that 2 electricity substations were targeted in this attack, leaving some 20,000 residents of Kharkiv without power through parts of Wednesday. So another difficult day for the Ukrainian Air Force, having to deal with these aerial threats. And Kharkiv has become a particularly vulnerable spot for Ukraine, with it being so close to that Russian border. So another difficult day for Ukraine and for the people of Kharkiv in particular.
Oleksiy Chernyshov reporting for us from Kyiv. Thanks very much. Ukraine has suspended Justice Minister German Galushchenko amid a corruption probe into the energy sector following the dismantling of a $100 million laundering scheme involving Energoatom executives and former officials. So far, 5 people have been detained and 7 charged, including ex-minister Oleksiy Chernyshov and businessman Timur Mindich, a former associate of President Zelensky.
Ukraine's government has suspended Justice Minister German Galushchenko as part of the ongoing investigation into corruption in the energy sector.
This morning, we held an emergency government session and approved the decision to suspend German Galushchenko from his duties as Justice Minister.
The High Anti-Corruption Court is also considering preventative measures for Ihor Myroniuk, one of the suspects in the embezzlement of funds from Energoatom, who is considered a flight risk. According to the investigation, he was one of the key participants in a scheme for which tens of millions of dollars could have been siphoned from the state-owned company.
Having created a criminal organization, Mindich, Zuckerman, Ustimenko, Fusenko, Zorina, Myroniuk and Basev, as well as other unidentified participants, received funds as an indirect benefit for performing actions using their official position in the interest of counterparties of the state nuclear power company Energoatom and subsequent money laundering.
The group reportedly included former energy officials and executives at the state nuclear power giant Energoatom and managed to launder around $100 million. 5 people have been detained and 7 have been charged so far.
Any effective action against corruption is necessary, punishment is necessary. Energoatom provides Ukraine with the largest share of energy generation. Transparency in the company is a priority.
Former Minister of National Unity Oleksiy Chernyshov is among the accused, alongside Timur Mindich, a businessman and former associate of President Zelensky.
Power outages in Kyiv highlight both Russian attacks on energy infrastructure and Ukraine's failure to fortify critical sites, partly due to corruption within Energoatom. Citizens are demanding President Zelensky act decisively by removing officials implicated in graft and allowing anti-corruption bodies to proceed without interference. That's according to Daria Kalenyuk, co-founder of the International Center for Ukrainian Victory.
I'm now in Kyiv and I don't have electricity. Electricity cuts are happening every day, and basically one of the reasons, a clear reason, is that Russians are attacking our critical energy infrastructure. But another reason is that Ukrainian critical energy infrastructure was not prepared properly for these attacks. The defensive construction sites were not built on time. And one of the reasons is that there was this organized crime group working and influencing the critical energy infrastructure company Energoatom and embezzling the funds. Mm-hmm. So, and people of Ukraine are watching all of that. They are very angry. They expect President Zelensky to react straightforwardly. It's not enough to have 30 seconds message to the people of Ukraine, which he recorded 2 days ago, that he said we are waiting for the court verdicts. We can wait for the court verdicts for years. But now it is important for Zelensky to basically avoid covering up his inner circle and let anti-corruption bodies to complete their jobs. And those who are suspect in large-scale graft and corruption must be dismissed immediately from their important top governmental positions.
German police investigators have linked the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipeline to the former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, Oleksiy Chernyshov, according to the Wall Street Journal.
Well, German investigators claim that the facts paint a, quote, clear picture that the Nord Stream pipeline explosions were carried out by an elite Ukrainian military unit, acting under the authority of Kyiv's former military chief, Oleksiy Chernyshov, now Ukraine's ambassador to the UK. Germany has been looking into the case for nearly 3 years after 3 of the 4 gas pipelines connecting Russia and Germany were damaged and rendered inoperable in September of 2022, several months after the outbreak of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Initially, Russia had been the main suspect, but this summer, German prosecutors issued international arrest warrants for 2 Ukrainians suspected of being involved in the sabotage case. First, Serhiy Kuznetsov was detained in Italy, and later Volodymyr Żurawliow was detained in Poland. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk made it instantly clear that he would not support extraditing Żurawliow to Germany.
Europe's problem, Ukraine's problem, the problem of Lithuania and Poland is not that Nord Stream 2 was blown up, but that it was built. Russia, with money from some European countries, German companies and Dutch companies, built Nord Stream 2 against the vital interest not only of our countries, but of all of Europe. It is not in the interest of Poland, nor in the interest of decency and justice to prosecute or extradite this citizen to another state. The decision will rest with the court, but our position here is clear.
His position was mirrored in a Warsaw court days later. The judge ruled against Mr. Żurawliow's extradition, arguing that as Ukraine was at war with Russia, such an attack could not be considered sabotage, but rather as legitimate self-defense. In Italy, by stark contrast, a court in Bologna last month approved Serhiy Kuznetsov extradition in a closed hearing. Kuznetsov, a former military officer, had been on a 10-day hunger strike and is currently appealing his ruling for a second time. He also accuses Italian authorities of deliberately mistreating him in order to force a confession. The Wall Street Journal said that if the case goes to trial, Berlin could find itself prosecuting members of the same nation that is simultaneously arming against Russia, a move that also risks undermining Europe's unity on Ukraine.
The Czech Republic's incoming Prime Minister Andrej Babiš meets with the country's President Petr Pavel on Wednesday to discuss the formation of a new Czech government. In the parliamentary elections held in early October, Babiš's ANO party won a plurality of votes and subsequently formed a governing coalition with the far-right SPD and the populist Motorists Party. However, the exact makeup of the incoming government has yet to be confirmed. Joining us live is our correspondent for the Czech Republic, Andrew Sweeney. Thank you for joining us. What do we expect to be discussed by the 2 leaders today?
Well, the 2 leaders are meeting in Prague Castle behind me. That meeting is still ongoing, and there's likely to be 3 particular issues. Number 1, the formation of the Czech government itself. That's because the coalition is in place, but they must now nominate people to go to fill ministerial posts. The president is understood to believe that this is taking too long, as Babiš has said. It could take him well until December. Also, one of the nominees for this post, for foreign minister's post, Filip Turek, has drawn extreme controversy here due to his outrageous social media, where he described Barack Obama in racial terms, made very nasty comments about Czech Republic's Roma community, and was even pictured drinking in a nightclub with a convicted murderer. The second point will likely be the new government's programme when it comes into effect. Babiš is understood to want to have a budget in place very soon, whereas Pavel is concerned about the lack of information about Czech security policy. The SPD has long campaigned for a Czech exit from the EU and NATO, something that Pavel is vehemently against. Finally, where's the issue of a conflict of interest with Agrofest? This is a company owned by Andrej Babiš, one of the Czech Republic's richest men, that has state contracts. So it is believed that it would be a real conflict of interest when he becomes Prime Minister. Under Czech law, if his children receive that company, there's no conflict of interest. So the meeting is ongoing, and while the governing coalition, is in place, the government will still take some time. Thanks. Back to you.
Andrew Sweeney reporting for us from Prague. Thanks very much. Czech railway company RegioJet is determined to enter the Polish railway market. But PKP Intercity, Poland's largest Polish rail operator, appears to be doing everything to ensure RegioJet doesn't feel welcome, to the extent that even the European Commission might have to get involved.
A David versus Goliath style fight is brewing on Polish rail tracks. The challenger, a Czech company called RegioJet, is throwing down the gauntlet at the incumbent PKP Intercity. RegioJet wants to start a regular service in Poland in December, but says it's facing significant resistance and plans to take its complaints straight to Brussels.
We considered the behavior of PKP Intercity unlawful and a violation of fair competition rules. Because of that, we will file a petition with the European Commission.
The Czech company says it's facing numerous problems in Poland, including delays in acquiring PKP real estate put up for sale, obstacles in putting up adverts in railway stations, difficulties in hiring PKP staff, and discrimination in access to the track network. PKP Intercity on its part says it's playing by the book. But adding to the controversy, in August, the company notified the Polish Internal Security Agency about a private message sent by RegioJet founder Radim Janczura to PKP Intercity CEO Janusz Malinowski.
Long-distance rail remains the sole exception in Poland, otherwise a very competitive market. Any attempt to block RegioJet will backfire. The public, the media, but also politicians will be on our side. You can delay us, but in the end our trains will run.
PKP PLK, the Polish infrastructure operator, says complaints about track access stem from planned works on a line that connects Warsaw and Krakow. But this leaves other complaints unanswered. One thing is sure, David is eager to fight.
The jailed mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, could face more than 2,000 years in prison after a prosecutor indicted him on the charges of allegedly leading a large corruption network that cost the state nearly $4 billion.
What will the world look like in the year 4377? It's hard to tell, but this is when the imprisoned Istanbul mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, could leave prison if he's found guilty of all 142 charges in his indictment.
The indictment regarding the organization's founder and leader, suspect Ekrem İmamoğlu, states he directly committed the crimes of establishing an organization for the purpose of committing a crime, bribery, laundering proceeds of crime, and fraud to the detriment of public institutions and organizations.
And the list goes on and on for his charges as an alleged leader of a criminal organization.
Recording personal data, obtaining and disseminating personal data, concealing criminal evidence, interception of communication, damage to public property, accepting bribes, publicly disseminating misleading information, extortion, fraud to the detriment of public institutions and organizations, laundering assets derived from crime, and tender rigging.
İmamoğlu was elected mayor of Turkey's largest city, Istanbul, in 2019 and was re-elected in 2024. He was then removed from his office in March 2025 after being arrested on corruption charges. This sparked nationwide protests as people saw the move as President Recep Tayyip Erdogan cracking down on his main rival, who already announced he would stand in the presidential election in 2028.
We came here to react to the detention of a presidential candidate for the Republic of Turkey. This situation has caused us to lose faith in democracy.
The arrest also resulted in İmamoğlu having his university diploma invalidated, thus making him unable to stand for president. According to the leader of the Republican People's Party, or CHP, which the jailed mayor is a member of, the charges are to serve as yet another obstacle on İmamoğlu's road to the presidency.
This case is not legal, it is entirely political. Its purpose is to stop the CHP, which came first in the last elections, and to block its presidential candidate.
Alongside İmamoğlu, more than 400 mayors, municipal administrators, business people and opposition politicians have also been named as suspects in the indictment.
And that concludes Midday Report. Thank you so much for being with us, and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.